distinguished guests, dear colleagues, Mr. Ambassador, Mr. MEP, Mr. Czarnecki, I'd like to welcome you all to this online event, Refugee Children and Education, Inclusion and Improvement for a Better Future, which is hosted by European Parliament EU-Turkey Friendship Group and ASAM Brussels. Behind this online event, there is quite amount of hard work done by a lot of persons. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them all. To start with, I want to give you some brief information about ASAM and who we are. The Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants was established in 1995 in Ankara. ASAM is an independent, impartial, and a non-profit association to assist refugees and asylum seekers living in Turkey. 25 years of experience brought us implementing partnerships with all the UN agencies, German Development Corporation, and many other national and international organizations. ASAM is the first organization in Turkey having the concept of asylum seeker in its name. ASAM has been providing social and legal support for the refugees and asylum seekers with 55 offices in 31 provinces in Turkey and with more than 1,500 full-time staff. We've opened our first representation in Athens in 2016, and it is followed by Belgium, Brussels in 2019. I don't want to talk much and bore you because I know that there are a lot of persons waiting to bring value to this online event, but I would just like to express a little bit of my feelings about this particular concept, which is help. What would be the situation that you think you need help the most? My answer to that question would be when I feel lonely and I feel without hope. So think of a person in a situation when that is so near, so close, and think of a person coming from a foreign soil after the most dangerous journey that anyone could ever imagine. And think of this person offered help on this foreign soil when he or she needed it the most, provided shelter, food, protection, education. So this is why I value humanitarian aid. And we are going to talk about humanitarian aid and a specific part of it, which is education for refugee children. So in a couple of minutes, we will watch a mini concert from a choir of refugee children, for whom the most dangerous journey of their lifetime was not just a scary movie, but reality. But they're in good hands now, perfectly well. Farah Refugee Children Choir was established in 2017, and they practice every Saturday for more than 3 hours. Well appreciated. You don't have to know the language that they are going to sing in. What we need to do is just hear their voices. Ladies and gentlemen, Farah Refugee Children Choir is with us now.
These kids are singing about peace and how it will bring their smiles back. It's a song that resonates here. These children are all refugees, most of them from Aleppo in neighbouring Syria. Now they're also members of a choir, the Al-Farah Centre in Ankara.
I came from Aleppo 5 years ago with my parents and siblings. I didn't know how to play guitar, and I learned it here, and now I'm so happy.
As many as 200 children come to the centre every day. They say it's a safe space for them.
I started to come to this center in the summer. It's so nice in here. It makes us happy. It feels like a family.
The teachers say they're learning here too.
Hayata bağlanmayı öğrendik.
We've learned to appreciate life from them. We've learned it must go on under any conditions, no matter what you've been through. You should hold on to life with everything you have.
And the music really helps the children connect with each other. Children picked the name of the centre. It means my happiness. It's a sign of hope from them and a path towards what looks like a brighter future.
We're back, we're live on this special event, Refugee Children and Education, Inclusion and Improvement for a Better Future, which is hosted by EU Turkey Friendship Group and ASAM Brussels. Now we are moving to the opening statements. I would like to introduce you Ms. İpek Tekdemir first. İpek Tekdemir received a bachelor's degree in translation and interpretation from Atılım University in 2010. She earned her master's degree in MBA from Atılım University as well in 2017. Besides being the European Parliament Secretary General of EU-Turkey Friendship Group, she is indeed an education expert. After working on the field, she came to Brussels and she started her career at the European Parliament. When she came to Brussels, she said, I will never gonna regret it, but the weather makes her regret from time to time, I think, huh? What a lovely day in Brussels, İpek. Nice to have you. The floor is yours. I mean, at least the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you. Indeed, Murat, for the lovely word. And thank you for providing this opportunity for us. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, and dear guests, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this online event on this very crucial topic. I'm here as the General Secretary of the EU-Turkey Friendship Group. I spent most of my career dealing with international educational programs which bring education access to all children, including disadvantaged groups. I would like to start thanking ASAM and in particular Murat, Barış, Koralp for coordinating this event and for all of you joining today. With this background and in my personal capacity, I believe it is vital that we deepen the topic and discuss it between professional practitioners, academia, NGOs, decision makers, as well as the diplomatic community. We are all aware of children in every country are struggling with the impact of COVID-19. An entire generation has had its education disrupted. Imagine a refugee child before the pandemic already was in a disadvantaged situation. According to UNHCR report, nearly 3.7 million refugee children are out of school. The New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants pinpoints education as a crucial element of the international refugee response. Today, we are striving towards the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which aims at delivering inclusive and quality education for all and to promote lifelong learning. The problem is that today, COVID-19 could put that goal beyond reach. The pandemic has exposed gaps not just in providing education as such, but also in connectivity, access to clean water, and housing, transport, and employment opportunities. Certainly, all of which have direct impact on a child's ability to learn. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that during the ongoing pandemic, refugees and host communities, teachers, private sector, partners, innovators have found numerous ways to keep the education continuing. This has taken resourcefulness. Today, we are here to emphasize the importance of partnership and creative thinking and exchange of the best of each country's experiences. Turkey, for example, hosts one of the biggest refugee community worldwide, and we hear later from our colleagues on this topic today. We have to rethink and redefine the future of education. We need to bring the spirit to the field of education and develop meaningful technological long-term solutions for formal schooling. To achieve this, we need to forge lasting alliances across sectors. I believe technology can play an important role providing increased access to learning opportunities, and it can complement existing education. There are a number of promising practices and initiatives which highlight how existing technology used by refugee populations can boost refugee children's learning. We need a stronger partnership between education experts and technology companies, as well as the national and international authorities. It would be a huge step forward for refugee resilience, self-reliance, and opportunity, and giving a boost to passion and determination of millions of young people. I am very pleased to bring this crucial topic into awareness of a different perspective with the collaboration of ASAM and the EU-Turkey Friendship Group. Thank you. Murat Bey, we can't hear you. Mr. Murat.
I'm struggling with technology as well. When it comes to technology, I'm so limited. I'm limited with the remote control of my television. I'm sorry. So let's move forward, and it's time to hear from our ambassador, permanent representative of Turkey to EU, Mehmet Kemal Bozay. Upon graduating from International Relations, Department of Middle East Technical University, Ambassador Bozay joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1989. Ambassador Bozay presented his credentials to Donald Tusk, former President of the European Council, on 24th of January 2019. And he has been nothing but supportive since then to our efforts here in Brussels. We appreciate it. And Mr. Bozay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Murat. Distinguished participants, it's a big honor for me to be here together with you. It's a very timely occasion. I would like to start to thank the EU-Turkey Friendship Group and İpek in person, and its chair, distinguished MEP Mr. Czarnecki, for his efforts, and also ASAM General Coordinator Mr. Kavlak and Murat yourself, Murat Koralp, as Brussels representative. I am also thankful for the participation of the UNICEF representative here in Ankara, I believe. As philosopher Halil Gibran says, children are living arrows that are sent forth to the future. So the title of our event is self-explanatory, and it is also very convenient with the philosopher's words. Refugee children and education, inclusion and improvement for a better future. We should provide them a better future because they are the future of our region. They are the future of their own country. They are the future of the world, and they are the arrows in peaceful way traveling to the future. The conflict in Syria is now well in its 9th year, and according to UN figure, 13.5 million Syrians are in dire need of humanitarian assistance and protection. Out of these, 6 million are children. It's a big number. And 4 million live in so-called hard-to-reach areas. Today, the number of the registered Syrian refugees in Turkey has reached 3,650,000, of which almost 60% are children. The total number of the Syrian children of school age is 1,200,000. They are in between the age of 5 and 17. Out of these, 750,000 Syrian children have access to primary and secondary education in Turkey, school education in Turkey. The challenge is that only 62% of the school-age children have the access to education. But I would like to emphasize here it was around 30% in 2016. We are constantly working on increasing this number through our public institutions, with cooperation with the international organizations and with EU, of course. Education of Syrian children is of crucial importance since, as I mentioned, they will be the ones to rebuild their country in the future. And among them, there are already grown-ups having 20,000 Syrians pursue higher education in Turkey. The challenge is big and it continues, and we need to cooperate. We should have coordination. We should gather our efforts and we should share the burden. Even if the migratory flows from Syria stops now, the newborn Syrians in Turkey keep increasing. So far, we have 350,000 Syrian babies were born in Turkey. We need to talk and think about their education in advance. And then there's a famous agreement between EU and Turkey. This is EU-Turkey statement of 18 March 2016, which includes 3 billion of euro for 16 and 17, and 3 billion for 2018 and 2019. We are already have a big delay because all these projects had to be completed at the end of 2019. Now we are in 2021. Out of this, out of 6 billion euros, approximately 1,455,000 euros are dedicated to projects in education sector. They are implemented with the collaboration of Ministry of National Education and certain international organizations, including UNICEF, KfW, World Bank, GIZ, Council Worldwide, Stitching, Spark, and DAAD. Education sector projects cover 24.2% of the total facility fund, this 6 billion euros. The realization rate of FRIT in education sector is 56.8% as of December 2020. Under FRIT, there are two important projects on education. One is promoting integration of Syrian kids into the Turkish education system, PICTES, and conditional cash transfer for education, CCTE. PICTES projects provides Turkish language teaching together with backup education classes. The purpose is to enable Syrian children to catch up their Turkish peers in education. Whereas CCT program support poor refugee families to send their children to school. Under CCT, families receive financial support every 2 months via Kızılay on the condition that child has an average monthly attendance rate of 80%. These two projects, PICTES and CCTE, play a crucial role for the Syrian children's education. Their continuity is vital for them and for us. And when we look at the future, as it is the title of our event, as I said, 60% approximately of the 1.2 million school-aged Syrian children are living in Turkey, and these babies I just mentioned. Whether they stay in Turkey or return to their own country, satisfying their education needs are key for the stability of the region in the future. And I'm sure that UNICEF report that you all checked, having detailed information, detailed perspectives for these future endeavors. Turkey, the existing EU funding under Facility for Syrian in Turkey will end in 2021. If it ends abruptly, crucial projects such as PICTES and CCT will be deprived of enough funding to continue. That is why we are urging the EU to continue necessary funding for the Syrian in Turkey, particularly for the education and employment of the young generation. And the Commission, as the institution directly involved in the implementation of FRIT, knows very well that the projects created under FRIT must continue. We need the support of the Commission, Parliament, and Council. Therefore, this event, I would like to re-thank ASAM and also parliamentary, our friendship group, and all the participants, as this event is a very timely warning to all of us to fulfill our responsibilities to provide a better future to the Syrian children through providing proper education and also sharing the burden for the future of the region and for the future of the Syrian children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And as you quoted, children are peaceful arrows to the future, yes. And yes, we have to share the burden with some other partners. So we're moving to Mr. Ryszard Czarnecki, Chair of the European Parliament, EU-Turkey Friendship Group, and Vice Chair of the European Parliament. Let me introduce you. He obtained his bachelor's degree as well as his master's degree in Department of History at Wrocław University in Poland. He started his career as an archivist and then moved to journalism. So let me perform a joke here. Be careful what you say today, because the things you might say here is going to be well noted by Mr. Ryszard Czarnecki, I assume. He was elected to European Parliament in 2004, and he is the chair of the EU-Turkey Friendship Group and vice chair of the European Parliament, and he is also a fan of Ankara Gücü, as you can see in the background, and he's also a fan of Galatasaray, I guess. He's not just a friend of Turkey, he is a friend of Turkish football as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ryszard Czarnecki.
Thank you very much indeed for very kind introduction. Your Excellencies, dear guests, on behalf of the EU-Turkey Friendship Group, I would like to start thanking to Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants, ASAM, in particular, Murat, Barış, Koralp, for making this event possible for us today. It's a great privilege and great honor for me to address all of you with participation of Chief of UNICEF Turkey and General Coordinator ASAM İbrahim Kavlak on this crucial issue. Before I start, I would like to brief you about EU-Turkey Friendship Group. Our structure, the EU-Turkey Friendship Group, is a cross-party, non-partisan platform that promotes high-level dialogue among European and Turkish policymakers, business community, and civil society in order to bring Turkey and the EU closer and support its aspiration to be full membership. Friendship Group aims to analyze and highlight important issues emanating from Turkey's geostrategic position and put Turkey into a broader context. These issues will be analyzed and discussed through cultural and soft diplomacy activities with the broad participation of civil society and business communities. Through critical but constructive debates, smart parliamentary diplomacy activities, Friendship Group aims to promote the actions needed to intensify relations between Ankara, between Turkey and the European Union institutions, as well as member states, include my country, Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, number of people forcibly displaced across the world due to conflict, violence, and persecution hit record level. It's a pity. As the refugee crisis becomes a serious global matter, we acknowledge and value contribution of Turkey in global refugee issue. First of all, Turkey now hosts the largest refugee population in the world. We are all aware of the fact that the solution to migration crisis are beyond the means of a single country, and it requires international burden sharing. Turkey and EU successfully reached an agreement on the refugee issue on 18 March 2016, almost 5 years ago. I believe renewal and update of the agreement between the Brussels and Ankara, EU and Turkey, should be one of the top issue for a policy agenda this year of 2021. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while closing down school activities due to COVID-19 affected all children, the lives of refugee and migrant children were particularly touched. For them, going to school, meeting new friends, and going out of the refugee camps brought them out of their secluded existence to a sense of normalcy and joy of being together with other children. For these children, schools is above a hope for a brighter future, a good future. The situation has put additional strain on education professionals to find new creative ways to organize an adopted education process for refugee and migrant children outside classrooms. As the lockdown in many countries shows no sign of easing, continuing education through attractive learning pathways must be a top priority for all children, including refugee and migrant children. And in the short term, this means ensuring free access to learning through temporary remote, alternative, or distance learning. I mentioned it's important for education is not overlooked while we return to some sort of normality. It should not be overlooked in state strategies and in donor strategies. It's important. Emergency responses should not prevent constructive learning opportunities, which create a safe space for children to learn, grow, and regain a sense of hope in their future. Finally speaking, dear friends, before I finish, I would like to thank Association for Solidarity and Asylum Seekers and Migrants, ASAM, for their dedicated work and effort for the refugees. I observe they do a courageous work in terms of providing inform on refugees and assisting refugees in most part of Turkey. I hope this digital meeting will lead to more productive, more effective and concrete projects between our friendship group and ASAM in close future. I would like once again to thank your participation and look forward to a fruitful discussion. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you for your encouraging words, Mr. Czarnecki. Thank you for sparing some precious time of yours and joining this online event. So we have come to an end to the first session. While we are getting ready for the second one, we will watch a video clip which was taken from one of our events held maybe a couple of years ago. As you may already know, every year we celebrate the opening of the Grand National Assembly on the 23rd of April. And the founder of the Republic of Turkey, great leader Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, dedicated this special day to children, not just children from Turkey, children from all around the world. So we thought, why not gather refugee children with Turkish children and on this special occasion? And the result turned out to be great. Ladies and gentlemen, let's watch this video clip. And I would like to thank all of our participants for joining us, for joining this online event. You put value to this special occasion. Thank you all. And let's watch this joyful video clip.
burası benim ülkem ama burayı da çok seviyorum.
Ülkemize misafir olarak geldiler. İyi ki de geldiler. Yine arkadaşlarımız oldu.
Çok mutlu olduk. Çok eğlenceli, şarkı söyledik. Çocuklar herkes alkışladı bize.
Geçen sene gelmişlerdi. Ben gelmemiştim. Ya çok heyecanlıydım. Çok gelmek istiyordum. Geldim de çok güzeldi.
Oynadım, yemek yedim. Çok mutlu. Çok güzel arkadaşlar var.
Çocukların sesi yükselsin, biz de varız diyelim. Zeytin bağları versinler, evleri süsleyelim.
abi?
Saniye.
Tamam.
Tamamdır.
Okay, that's perfect. You can close it now.
Ekrandaki next speeches kısmı 30 saniye.
We're back, we're live. You are watching this special event, which is hosted by EU-Turkey Friendship Group and ASAM Brussels and ASAM headquarters as well. Our topic is refugee children and education, inclusion and improvement for a better future. In the first session, we had opening statements, and then we're gonna dig this topic a little bit more with our experts. The first one is Märt. Hello, Märt. Let me introduce you first. Since 2004, Märt has co-founded 3 NGOs and 4 companies for education development. Märt co-authored the Youth Good Ideas book in 2005, The book brings together the life experiences of 40 leads in Estonia. He is joining us from Estonia, by the way, with the objective of inspiring youth to find their path. He's joining us from Tallinn. Tallinn is the most lovable cities in Estonia. I've been there once. Super city. So tell me, Märt, we have participants from all over Europe and all over the world, may I say. We are participating this event from Brussels. Our HQ in Ankara is involved. You are from Tallinn, Estonia. Is it not the most international event that you attended during the last couple of weeks, huh?
Probably is, very likely.
Yeah, go ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, Märt Aro, please.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here, and I really appreciate the work that ASAM is doing in Turkey. It's an honor to be invited to this kind of company. From my background, you gave a really beautiful overview already, but I'm really delighted to mention that the cooperation with Turkey from my side has been very long. Actually, we have cooperation with quite a few Turkish universities. For example, Koç University, Middle East Technical University are really good partners. And our colleague in Europe, Miss İpek Tekdemir, is really a big asset. And she's been helping a lot on our efforts in the European Union. So really great cooperation experience, and I really love Istanbul. I've been many times, and Izmir and Ankara, of course, as well. And it's one of the things that I've been thinking about during this pandemic has been, when can I go back to Turkey again? So it's looking forward to this. And we also have started dialogue with the Turkish Ministry of Education for education innovation development in cooperation between Turkey and Estonia. So looking forward to see how this develops as well. But I'll dig into a small presentation that I prepared for today, and I'll share my screen for this. Share screen. Start sharing. And can you confirm that it works?
It is working. It's working perfectly well.
Perfect. And yes, now I will see also my Skype messages on my screen. But the topic that I wanted to open up from refugees' perspective is one of the innovations that we've been working on together with the UN and also the World Bank, is reusable services for education development. And but I'll give you a little bit of background first. So I'm coming from the future, and in this future, 99% of government services are online. Doing taxes takes about 3 minutes. Establishing a company takes about 20 minutes. Voting for parliament is also done online, and internet is considered a human right. And this place is not keeping stuff to themselves. They have opened it up for the whole of the world through e-residency program. Do you know where I'm coming from? It's Estonia, of course.
I'm going to say, I was going to say I have no idea, but yeah, perfect.
So Estonia has a quite good experience in setting up digital services for helping or supporting the citizens. And I like to bring this background just to give a statement or an understanding that everything that I'm talking about is actually possible and not that far out of reach as you might imagine. My dream, why I'm working with education development, is to enable access to high quality education to everybody globally. And indeed, it's been already 17 years, and quite a lot of things have been done as well. One of the initiatives that from my personal work goes together with supporting international people to go to study is actually Dream Apply. It's now operating in 35 countries already, And it's a student admissions and marketing management platform for universities. But we started to build it actually from the student's perspective to help students to go to study abroad. And also if you're already living abroad and want to go to the university in the country where you're living in, and the university uses ReamApply, it is a great opportunity to understand better what is expected from you and how you can apply there. And the students' feedback has been really lovely. There is now probably around 3 million students using ReamApply this year. But let's go deeper now into the innovation side. And let's say if we want to improve the quality of access to education to also people that have, due to whatever circumstances, ended up in a foreign country, then the question is, how can we support them the best way? And if we look back in education history, then innovation is nothing new in education sector. So we are always used to do innovation in education. And this is a Gutenberg's printing press, and it's from 1440s. So and this is probably the most impactful innovation we have had throughout the history of education. Thanks to the books that were starting to become much cheaper, thanks to the printing press, a lot of knowledge was possible to pass over to other countries and also people within the countries. But going back to the Lego blocks of learning, so let's imagine when we could have different types of learning pieces that we can combine together in a way that is most useful for the learner. Then you can most easily draw a parallel with the Lego blocks that you can combine together. And what this means is that why this is important is that when we look at education development, then very often the governments are looking at it like a monolithic, like one big system that you have to develop at once, and everybody should get the uniform education. But if we talk about, let's say, immigrants specifically, then very often this approach is hard to apply. And a much more easy approach could be used, which is called microservices-based approach. And microservices literally are very narrow services that are meant for learning certain things. The microservices-based approach can be used in many aspects, also outside of education, but in education sector, we feel that this is critical development. And I'll give just a few examples why it is like that. So let's imagine that we would have an endless budget to build the best possible system that would cover everything that we want to learn in our lifetime. And let's imagine that one person wants to learn about 2 million learning bytes. We want to know about 2 million different things. So, and let's say we make a public tender, we get the best possible company from the world to come and build our large system to serve all education. Then even if we are getting the best company, very likely the best company will only be able to cover, let's say, 200,000 of these 2 million learning bytes with high quality expertise that is able to understand exactly how we should teach this thing in the best possible way. 200,000 is great, but it's only 10% of the 2 million, which will mean that the other areas will not be covered with expertise, and which will mean that the solutions will be average or below average quality. And now if we ask, okay, but do we want to give average or below average education services to our children? And obviously the answer is no. So another issue that you will have is that let's say we get the best programmers to build a system. We get the system ready in super fast time. It only takes us 5 years. And then we launch the system, and what happens is that we find out that it's already morally outdated and technologically outdated by the time it's ready. So to avoid these hassles, the microservices approach is actually really interesting, because even if you don't have any expertise available on a super narrow niche, for example, we want to have a specialist tool to teach multiplication table to hyperactive children. It's quite easy to imagine that there is a tool almost all teachers in the world are struggling with hyperactive children, so everybody needs this tool. But let's say there is no expertise in this area. There's nobody who knows exactly how to teach multiplication table to hyperactive children. Now, if there is a specialist team that starts to build this kind of tool to support teachers and learners, then even if they don't have expertise in the beginning, very likely they will develop expertise while building this, because they are focused on solving this concrete task in the highest possible quality manner. And now, if you imagine that you have 2 million of these types of different tools that are specially designed for learning something the best possible way in the world, and you would, of course, need an infrastructure in place that would facilitate that the learners and the teachers could very conveniently also use these tools and move from one tool to another conveniently. But in the end of the day, they're very easily comparable to Lego blocks because you can combine them easily. I will also bring out a few examples. So one of the things that we have done during the COVID crisis to support teachers and learners in need for distance learning tools was that over the Northern Europe, we invited companies and solution providers to open up their resources for free. And this got the name Teach Millions. In total, 125 companies joined this initiative, and it's still possible to use this resource in case learners that would like to learn something or the teachers who need some distance learning tools want to use it, go ahead. And just to give you two very brief examples of already existing microservices-based approach examples. I just took two because we don't have a lot of time to cover examples, but I hope this helps to understand what I have in mind. So the Grapho game is a great example because actually this was invented by one of the top teacher training universities in Finland, which is called Jyväskylä University. And the problem that they wanted to solve was that they saw that a lot of kids have difficulties to learn how to read, and especially if the kids have like specialist or let's say disabilities, let's say, and then what happens is that very often these kids learn one-on-one with the teacher, and let's say if in case of dyslexia, it can happen that it takes tens and tens of work hours of both time the teacher spends one-on-one with the learner, but the learner is not able to learn still how to read because of special condition. So they came up with a better methodology how to teach reading in general, and they didn't know exactly how to make it into a product that everybody could use globally. So they turned to a Finnish startup in education, and the startup was kind enough to make it into a product. And let's have a quick look at how it looks like.
In, sing, king, tip.
So why I like this kind of innovation of education is that Cambridge University actually did a study as well on this, and they found that there was no difference if the child is learning alone with the app or if the teacher is sitting together with the child and they are learning together. The child will learn the same fast how to read, and this methodology is suitable then for also different kind of learning differences of children. So and the children don't have this kind of negative learning experience when they are using this kind of gamified approach that we looked at the moment. And it's because it's possible to use it globally, the cost of the solution also becomes very small per learner. I think don't quote me on this, but I think the cost for learner is now about 26 cents for using this game if it's negotiated on the country level. So, which is almost nothing, as everybody probably can agree. And why I like this kind of innovation also is that we can save teachers time on certain areas of teaching. And I know many teachers, and I know that most of them are overworking to try to give the best possible education to the children that they can. But if you have, I mean, in the normal middle school, teacher has 200 kids that they're working with on a weekly basis. So it can be really difficult to find the time to work personally with the children. But if you have this kind of tools available that can open up the teacher's time a little bit, the teachers know super well how to take this time and apply this to support this child in the back seat who is for some reason having difficulties to focus today, and whatever the reason might be. And just to have a total different perspective, how we can make learning a little bit more engaging, let's say, maybe, or more easily understandable for children, I chose to show Mobilab, which is an Estonian solution provider for education. And just as a background inspiration.
Welcome,
video.
Commander Riker. And if you care to enter, Commander.
I do.
So here we are looking at the Star Trek movie from probably 1988, where Commander Riker is stepping into what they call holodeck. This is a digital learning environment which will transform into this kind of environment what you actually need at the moment to support your learning. And actually, this concept is not new at all. The first time that I was able to find that it was mentioned was in a book by Ray Bradbury in 1950 already. So, but today we are getting closer and closer to realizing this kind of possibilities of bringing children to a specialist environment and teaching them how to, teaching about this environment or teaching how to behave in a certain environment. The example of the company is here, and here we are seeing a virtual room that we are stepping in, and we are able to learn about this environment that we stepped into, and we can hear the sounds as well. And for example, we can use a tablet computer to do this kind of rooms, and it can be. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. So let's say you are supposed to teach or learn about Amazon jungle in a class of geography. And now let's imagine you have an opportunity to read about Amazon jungle, and there may be some pictures in the book as well. Or you have an opportunity to take your teammates or group mates and go together into a virtual room and look around there and experience the sounds and maybe even kind of zoom into the frogs that are sitting in the jungle or something like that. Which way could be easier to remember what actually is happening in the jungle? I believe everybody can agree that that's very likely the augmented reality that helps us to remember things. I don't want to take more of the time at the moment. Thanks very much for listening. Don't hesitate to connect with me in LinkedIn if you like to know more of the concepts that I've talked about. More than happy to share more info or just discuss further. Actually, on my website, martaro.me, some of the concepts that I've talked about are also described in more details. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Such a different approach to education. I myself am fascinated by your presentation. And when you were talking about Tallinn without saying anything that you are talking about Estonia, I said, no way, he is living in a dream world, but you said that is a fact. So
actually, we even have a joke about this. There's 3 things that you cannot do online in Estonia. You cannot get married, you cannot get divorced, and you cannot buy or sell your house. Everything.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you. And we are moving forward to dig a little bit more on this topic: refugee children and education, inclusion and improvement for a better future. We are now going to hear from İbrahim Vurgun Kavlak, General Coordinator of ASAM. Let me introduce you first, İbrahim Bey. He received a bachelor's degree in philosophy from Hacettepe University, and he earned a master's degree in human rights from Hacettepe University as well in 2007. Since 2005, İbrahim Vurgun Kavlak has been the general coordinator of ASAM, and ASAM is the most important implementing partners of several UN organizations, international organizations, and public institutions. So he is the key guy. He is the guy when thousands of people rushed to Edirne, to Greek-Turkey border 1 year ago, who gathered a crew, İbrahim Bey gathered a crew and organized humanitarian aid to those people in need, even though he and everybody was struggling with the fact that COVID-19 was everywhere and is everywhere. So, shall I say, he is a brave heart like Mel Gibson, but a much more good-looking version of Mel Gibson. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you İbrahim Vurgun Kavlak.
Thank you very much, Murat, for your good words. Distinguished Ambassador, honorable members of the EU-Turkey Friendship Group, honorable members of United Nations organizations, respectful academicians, staff of NGOs, dear participants, I welcome you all to this conference organized by ASAM Brussels Representative Office. Without getting into further details about the issues that Mr. Murat, Barış, Koralp already mentioned about ASAM, I would like to remind you some of general information of which you are all aware. Unfortunately, we are currently living in a world where 25 persons per minute, 37,000 persons per day, and 1 person every 2 seconds are forced to leave behind their territories. Turkey still maintains its position as the country hosting the highest number of refugees in the world for the last 5 years. While 65% of the Syrian refugees form 3.6 million of Turkey's population, a total population of 4 million with approximately 400,000 persons from different nationalities, and the majority being Afghans, Iraqis, and Iranians continues to stay in Turkey. Approximately worldwide, 3.7 million refugee children are still unable to access to education. Children constitute over 30 million of the displaced persons. It is worth noting that 7.4 million of this group are of school age. When we look at Turkey again, keeping in mind that the Syrian crisis will be completing its 10th year 2 months from now, you can see the increasing population over the years. However, just 10 years ago in 2011, the total asylum seeker and refugee population in Turkey was only 20,000 according to the UNHCR statistics. Similarly, when looking at the most densely populated cities, we can say that many of them are practically hosting an entire city. At this very point, to show how striking the population actually is, when we compare the population of the 0 to 18 age group with the children born in Turkey included, and the total Syrian population to the population of each of the EU states, we see these figures. There's a population living in Turkey that exceeds the combined population of 8 EU states. This is an indication that the efforts to be made and must be made for this population create a variety and significance that nearly requires governance just as a country does. Of course, if we also include the number of non-Syrians in addition to the Syrian population, the total population goes up one step further and reaches 4 million. In this regard, with the valuable contributions of the European Union and United Nations organizations, we as an NGO have reached 2,295,700 persons within the last 5 years and provided over 4 million counseling services. These services range from legal counseling to health counseling and from vocational trainings to social cohesion activities. Perhaps women and children constitute the most important part of this population, but especially considering children and education over the years, it is worth mentioning that currently there are 1.2 million school-age children in Turkey. According to the official numbers, while 68,839 Syrian children have access to education from this population of 1.2 million children, approximately 430,000 children are unfortunately unable to access school due to various reasons. Refugee children are again present among the groups that have been affected the most by the pandemic within the last 1 year. In Turkey, students can have access to education via both formal and non-formal education opportunities. Formal education is a structured and systematic form of learning. This is the education of certain standards delivered to students by trained teachers. Non-formal education refers to education that occurs outside the formal school system. The Ministry of National Education is the sole authority for regulating formal and non-formal education. When we look at the figures in question, we can draw the conclusion that there is a heavy burden that needs to be shouldered, that there is still too much work to be done. And that in this sense, the international community should provide more support to prevent facing the risk of a lost generation. Perhaps there is no need to go into further details about the reasons for being out of school, as the UNICEF representative will surely mention about them. But it is worth noting that the lack of schooling results in a high number of protection-related concerns as well. Many protection concerns, especially issues such as child labor, early marriage, and social cohesion problems, may also emerge. In this connection, as ASAM, we have collaborated with UNICEF Turkey and conducted joint works to increase access to education during the last 1 year. To this end, we have conducted identification and assessment works and made referrals to non-formal and formal education opportunities. Currently, we have reached 50,000 children and their families. Also, in order to ensure that COVID-19 does not cause an interruption in the operation of our current works, we offer counseling services to these refugee groups nearly 120,000 times, and more than 17,000 families and children were provided with counseling on changing education methods. Before concluding my remarks, I would like to say a final words about the birth rates and youth population statistics I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, as well as the notion of voluntary return, which has recently become a hot topic of discussion as we are nearing the 11th year of the crisis. The child and youth population age between 0 to 24 is over 2.2 million. Regretfully, we cannot possibly mention that this group shares deep emotional, cultural, historical, and social ties with Syria. In consideration of this fact, the more time passes, the more difficult it becomes for this population to return. Therefore, for the future of both Syria and the countries where Syrians sought asylum, especially like Turkey, increased support should be given to children and their education in order to prevent them from becoming a lost generation. I would like to express my sincere thanks to ASAM's Brussels representative, Murat, Barış, Koralp, to the EU-Turkey Friendship Group's Secretary General İpek, Tekdemir, and to everyone who contributed to the organization of this event. And I wish you healthy days ahead with no masks and no distancing rules in many more events to come. Thank you very much and best regards.
Thank you very much, İbrahim Vurgun Kavlak. I share your thoughts about not wearing a mask and not social distancing with others. Thank you for your lovely speech. And now we have more than 800 viewers live on YouTube, which is fascinating. I mean, this is the thing. This is the good thing about doing this kind of virtual events. That would not be possible if we did this not online in a meeting hall maybe. Now we have more than 800 viewers. So let's move forward and let's hear from Brenda Haiplik, Chief of Education at UNICEF Turkey. Let me introduce you first, Brenda. Since August 2016, Brenda Haiplik has been the Chief of Education at UNICEF Turkey, where she manages a large and complex educational portfolio spanning the humanitarian development nexus. Before her current posting, she was the Senior Education Advisor, Emergencies at UNICEF HQ in New York. She holds a PhD in curriculum, teaching and learning with a specialization in comparative, international and development education from University of Toronto, Canada. So she is familiar with cold weather. Well, regarding that, she's coming from Canada and should be safe in Ankara in cold weather, I think. How are you holding up, Brenda Haiplik?
It's a warm day here. It's above zero, no problem.
Okay, then. It is considered warm, huh?
For me, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, Brenda Haiplik.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation on the screen in front of you?
I think our technical team will support you with that. Go ahead and don't worry about it.
Okay. So thank you for this invitation. It's great to be here today. I want to dig deep into what's happening with a response to the Syria crisis in the context of Turkey, and also talk about the pandemic, which we've already heard mentioned today. As you heard Ibrahim Bey say, Turkey hosts the largest refugee population in the world. Next slide, please. And within that, 46% are children. So it's a large group of young people. Also, as you heard, there are asylum seekers who are also part of the response in the education sector. In Turkey, the Ministry of National Education is the lead agency that coordinates the response for the Syria crisis, both in the formal education and non-formal education sectors. And the ministry works with partners like UNICEF, UNHCR, ASAM, and other trusted NGOs to ensure that quality education is available to all children. Next slide, please. The history of this is on one slide here, and you'll see very quickly, I'll take you through what has happened over the last several years. In 2012, 12 years of compulsory education became standard in Turkey, which is significant because many of the Syrians coming to us here in Turkey are only used to going up to grade 9 as part of compulsory education in their home country. So that's an added burden on families to think about additional years of education beyond grade 9. 2014 was a very important year because the Ministry of National Education passed a circular allowing for the enrollment of Syrian children into the Turkish system, specifically into temporary education centers, TECs, that were manned with Syrian teachers, supported by the ministry, and the children were studying in Arabic. Because then, several years ago, everyone hoped and prayed that the crisis would end and that Syrian children could go home with their families. Unfortunately, we all know that the conflict continues. In 2015, the ministry started registering Syrian children into Turkish public schools because it was decided that the crisis was not going to end anytime soon, and it made sense for children to enter the Turkish public system since they would be staying in country for some time. Then in 2016, the integration policy was implemented across the whole country, including the fact that any new pre-primary level and grade 1 students would not go into a TEC at all. They would go directly into a Turkish public school. 2018, another really important year because the ministry's Education Vision 2023 document was launched, setting the footing for the way forward, including inclusive education for all children in Turkey. Also in 2018, the non-formal education programs began to expand under Monet's leadership, including the very inclusive, highly successful accelerated learning program, which helps out-of-school children, primarily Syrian children, but others as well, have a jump start and a bridging program that will link them back into the Turkish system after they've been out of school for a long time. Homework support in innovative ways has also been supported since 2018. And then end of 2020, and now still we have this pandemic that we're all facing. And the pandemic is definitely a health crisis, but in education around the world, it is also very much an education crisis. And we've been working as a sector, partners to support the ministry to enhance its EBA online teaching and learning system so that children can study online remotely and safely from home, the goal being to continue education. Lastly, very important in 2020, the TECs, temporary education centers, were closed, which means that now all Syrian children enter Turkish public schools and study with Turkish children. Next slide, please. So there are over 1 million Syrian school-age children in Turkey at present. And as I said, most of those children, about 64.2%, are in Turkish public schools. The issue that we have, though, here is that even though the number of children entering Turkish public schools has grown, we still have over 400,000 Syrian children and other children out of school, which is significant, and that's a key area of work. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit now about why children are out of school and why children have low attendance issues. Next slide, please. UNICEF and Monet have worked hard to try to understand the profiles of out-of-school children in Turkey, specifically focusing in this slide on the issues for Syrian children. And you'll see some of these reasons on this slide. One is family mobility. Families often move chasing livelihood opportunities, which means that they go from the province they're registered in to another province, making it very difficult to re-register in a new province. Financial difficulties, particularly exacerbated now in the COVID-19 pandemic. Children are participating in work, child labor. There are also hidden costs associated with education. For example, transportation costs to go to and from school, which affect families. Gender norms. You've got girls who are expected to stay at home and manage household chores and take care of younger siblings while their parents are working. Some girls are affected by child marriage. And for some conservative families, they are uncomfortable sending their girls to mixed schools where they would study with boys. So there are many challenges for girls and other challenges also for boys. There are demotivating factors like language. To survive and thrive in Turkey, in the Turkish public school system, it really helps to learn Turkish because it's the language of instruction. If children have been out of school for a long time, it's very difficult to bring them back into a learning setting and make them feel comfortable. If a child has an illness or is disabled, or if a parent, especially fathers, are sick, the child will be regarded as a breadwinner in the family and therefore miss school. And social cohesion, which we heard about already. There are issues around bullying in school, in classrooms, on playgrounds, online, now with online learning and living. And finally, the awareness about families. In spite of the fact that this conflict has been going on for so many years and access to information is there, it is still very hard for many very vulnerable families to understand what the options are for them. That's why it's so important for us to have partners like ASAM who go household to household and explain what options are available to vulnerable children and their families. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the COVID response, because on top of helping millions of children enter the Turkish school system here in Turkey, We are also now dealing with this pandemic, which is wreaking havoc on the education system. Schools have been closed since March. We hope very much they will reopen in some form in mid-February after the current winter break. One thing that's been interesting is that the whole point of MONE, the ministry's approach, has been to continue learning in safe spaces through distance education modalities. So the EBA system has been used to support children safely continue learning at home, and UNICEF has supported that effort by enhancing the network. In addition, we've also helped the ministry prepare additional classroom videos about vocational education, because for many children, Syrian children and vulnerable other children, vocational training provides very useful, relevant life skills that they can use in their everyday lives. And lastly, teachers are critical to this work. UNICEF has worked with the ministry to train over 196,000 teachers and principals, local educators, to make sure that they are equipped and have the tips and tricks and tools to manage in this highly demanding remote environment. Next slide, please. Again, the theme of the continuity of learning using blended approaches. Blended meaning some face-to-face when it is safe to do so, and some online learning combined. Now, this EBA system is great if you have a television set, if you have internet connectivity at home, and if you have a phone. But if you don't, like many very vulnerable families don't have these options, then they can go to an EBA remote support center, which is basically a place which is a safe space, a computer lab, if you will, with a teacher or two. Masks are provided, hand sanitizers are provided, and children can study in a classroom environment and benefit from face-to-face support from their teachers. In some remote areas, there are also EBA mobile vehicles, trucks that go from location to location to support children in the same way. During the summer months, when vulnerable children were at home and we were all very much under lockdown here in Turkey, UNICEF worked with the ministry and partners to send learn-at-home kits, stationery, some basic reading materials to vulnerable children so that they could keep engaging and learning at home with their families. UNICEF also has supported over 12,000 Syrian volunteer education personnel to reinforce learning for Syrian children. During the pandemic, Syrian volunteers are working with children to get them to EBA centers so they can continue learning, and calling children through WhatsApp, by phone, and if possible, visiting children as well. I mentioned already that learning Turkish is critical, so supporting Turkish language skills and learning for vulnerable children, including out-of-school children, is important work, and that continues with NGO partners and the government. And lastly, homework support is critical because in this time of the pandemic, when children are very isolated at home, knowing that they can talk to their teachers on phone, online to get homework support is really, really helpful. We had some good results in that area. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the bookends, the youngest learners at preschool level and adolescents. These are two of the most vulnerable groups for Syrian learners, but also for other learners in Turkey. What we've done with the little ones is worked with the ministry and partners to move all of our face-to-face learning online. And there have been some wonderful serendipitous bonuses from that. For example, because fathers have been at home now during lockdown times, fathers have become more engaged remotely using WhatsApp materials and remote parental support in the development of their young children. In addition, UNICEF has worked with the ministry to enhance the safe learning environments at public education centers where the accelerated learning program takes place. And I'm very happy to say that the ALP is now up and running again, face-to-face, in many parts of the country, targeting some of the most vulnerable learners who have been out of school for several years. Also, children adolescent age are able in 10 provinces to benefit from the Schooling Adolescents Through Vocational Education program and benefit from the VEC's face-to-face learning programs. Next slide, please. Now, I keep saying face-to-face over and over, and one reason for that is, even as adults, we all know how tough this last year has been on our mental health, on our emotional well-being, it's the same thing for all human beings, and especially for young students who have been out of school, and for refugees, even more so. So we've worked to prioritize the mental health and emotional well-being of students, teachers, and parents during these difficult, challenging days. We've worked with the ministry to create a mental health psychosocial support program to help increase the resilience of students, teachers, and their parents during the pandemic, and to help them get used to the new normal, which is the blended learning approach for now until the foreseeable time when things change. We've also worked to include psychosocial support materials for children who are not performing at the levels they should be to participate in the remedial education program run by the Ministry of National Education, and to make sure that hard copy materials for that program have been distributed to most schools across the country. Lastly, in this area of work, we've worked with the ministry's counseling and research centers, the RAMs, to adapt and enhance the quality of counseling and special education services, which are extremely important during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Lastly, the way we communicate with the refugee population in Turkey, both before the pandemic began and now, is really critical. So UNICEF has worked with the ministry and partners in the education sector working groups across the country on a nationwide back-to-school campaign, with the key message being at school, at home, education anytime, anywhere. So the whole message of blended learning, it doesn't matter if you're stuck at home, you can still learn. And if you can't learn at home because you don't have an internet connection, you don't have a television or a phone, you can go to an EBA support center that the ministry is running in neighborhoods around the country and learn face-to-face. So part of this messaging campaign, we've supported the ministry in messaging clearly in September and October 2020 when schools did reopen, and to help schools go back in an organized manner. As you know from many countries around the world listening to the news, schools have opened, then they've closed. Youngest learners have gone back, then they've been pulled home. Some countries prioritize older learners because they're studying for exams. We're facing the same challenges here in Turkey, and the sector and Monet colleagues are working together to make sure the most vulnerable learners get the face-to-face time they need. So for example, after the February break, it is anticipated that perhaps the grade 8 children and grade 12 children would get some face-to-face education, because they're the ones who are going to be writing the very important transition exams that determine their way forward. However, this is all very much a hope. We don't know, depending on the epidemiological situation in Turkey and around the world. Hopefully schools will reopen in mid-February if all goes well. So, a refugee crisis, a health crisis, an education crisis. İbrahim Bey noted the connection between child protection issues and education. He couldn't be more right. Everything we do is to help keep children safe and to continue learning during any kind of environment and context. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brenda Haiplik. I myself admire the work that you have done in Turkey and all around the world, and I am a fan of your UNICEF cards as well. I have a big collection back at home. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. I think we have come to an end to this second session as well. We have like 1,000 viewers on YouTube. That I can consider the job well done. So next time it will be again maybe on internet, but it's going to connect us, and we're going to get overcome these serious problems, whatever they are. So thank you all for joining us on this live event. Hope to see you again in healthy days. Thank you for joining us, and bye-bye.